Thank you, Chairman. Dr. Huff, the Russian invasion of Ukraine demonstrates the need for the U.S. to continue ensuring domestic energy security. And I support the development of a domestic strategic uranium reserve as part of a broader plan to decouple ourselves from Russia's supply of uranium. The U.S. market for uranium enrichment could potentially supply our nuclear fuel needs as long as there is a very clear, stable, and long-term U.S. market signal. So can you describe for us how DOE is playing a role in that market and discuss what additional authorizations DOE might need to ensure that we fully decouple from Russian uranium?
Thank you, Senator. Right now, we are working on a draft request for proposals that should acquire the needed high-assay, low-enriched uranium from new capacity built here in the United States to support our 2 demonstration projects. That comes from the $700 million allocated in the Inflation Reduction Act. So we're grateful for Congress's leadership in this. In addition to this, as this is part of a much broader cross-DOE uranium strategy, which seeks to identify ways to support the market through targeted long-term offtake agreements and needs to be coupled with appropriate import restrictions. And this uranium strategy identifies ways in which we can create a signal for the market that's long enough term that investments from the private industry will be confident enough to stand up that new capacity. And while not all of it is yet funded, we certainly are already working on the part that is. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. As you mentioned in your opening testimony, nuclear energy has an opportunity to play a key role in decarbonizing non-electricity markets, things like industrial heating processes, heavy-duty transportation. In addition to the nuclear fuel supply chain risks that you mentioned, what do you see as the key challenges in making nuclear energy more flexible? Things like adding thermal storage or combining hydrogen production with nuclear energy to increase its marketability in other sectors, things like high-temperature industrial heating, clean fuels for transportation, and how can we in Congress help?
Thank you for that. I think, the United States nuclear industry has some exciting near-term wins coming up with the Vogtle Unit 3 and Unit 4 soon to come online. And these gigawatts of clean electricity were hard to come by and suffered, some delays. And that, I think, can be helped by a future of smaller, more modular nuclear reactors that are built, as they say, more like airplanes than airports. We're really excited about this modularity in construction, which we expect will lower the cost of these units. Additionally, you mentioned high-temperature applications, thermal and combined heat and power applications are a critical part of our decarbonization that will lead to net zero. And that decarbonization can happen really well with a nuclear reactor, particularly high-temperature nuclear reactors like the ones that are being demonstrated through the Office of Clean Energy demonstrations in our Advanced Reactor Demonstration Program. Those include, for example, Natrium reactor from TerraPower, which is a sodium-cooled fast reactor. It includes one of these molten salt storage systems that you described that helps with flexibility. Additionally, the X-Energy XE100 reactor, which is a high-temperature gas reactor, it gets up to temperatures, in the many hundreds of Celsius, well beyond what our current reactor types can get to, and can be really helpful in that process heat where extremely high-quality process heat is needed.
Ms. Culver, in the remainder of my time, as I mentioned in my statement, over 160 miles of the current Continental Divide Trail route currently require diversions onto roads and highways for hikers. How would closing those gaps better achieve the purpose of the trail?